Hi, good morning, everyone joining us here from Scotland and those in this room, and good afternoon, those joining us from Malawi and online. You are welcome to this Renewables Forum. Today, my name is Nasim. From the SMP. I'm the Communications and Engagements Officer. And today, before I hand over to our chair, who is Professor Stuart Galloway, I just want to do a few housekeeping notes. So if you're in this room and you're also online sharing anything, you have given us consent that we can publish whatever you're going to share, because everything is going to be recorded. And for those joining us in this room as well, from what I know, there's no fire drill. There's one that took place about an hour ago, so we are fine. If you hear any of that, just we'll follow Stuart. I'm sure he knows where to go. Yeah, we'll follow him. He knows where to take us to. And if you also need the bathrooms, there's a door outside just behind you to the left-hand side. It's going to be on your right in the corridor. And for those joining us online, you are free to introduce yourselves in the chat box. Just tell us who you are and where you're from. And if you have any questions, you can just raise your hand and you'll be unmuted. You'll be allowed to unmute yourself and to speak. So with that, I'll hand over to Stuart. Sure. Thank you.
So, morning to everybody, or those online.
Are other people getting audio?
Oh.
Hello? Are other people getting audio?
Do you know what's going on?
We can hear.
Hello.
Yes, they say yes, getting audio.
Yeah, the answer is yes, I believe. Yeah, there's some thumbs up. Okay, so good morning, everybody here in the room in Glasgow, and welcome to those joining online today. My name is Stuart Galloway, and I'm the chair of the Renewable Energy Forum for the Scotland-Malawi Partnership. And I just thought I'd give you a little bit of some recent chat on some recent experiences we've had, and a bit of history as well before we go on and introduce some of our speakers for today's event. So I think what's at the core of our involvement in the SNP is really it's about helping understand and provide access to reliable, affordable and sustainable energy solutions. And this, I think you all know that continues to remain a challenge for Malawi and for other countries. However, it's a key element to underpinning, sustainable development across a number of the SDG goals. A key statistic that struck me from the National Energy Conference in Malawi earlier in the summer this year is that only 25.9% of the population of Malawi have any kind of access to electricity. That's against the targets of 70% access by 2030. That's for both grid and off-grid solutions for SDG 7. This is quite clearly an issue. There's an issue, and it's something I'm sure that will be familiar to many of you who are here and online, that it's a long-standing frustration, in particular to SNP members as well as others. However, I think many of you would say it's, this is a bit incongruous. Malawi has an abundant sort of renewable energy set of resources, particularly around solar and hydro. And in some ways, if we could be bringing these things together a bit more, then we could really do a lot more together for the country, basically, and ourselves. So, a key part of that is, the engineering side of things, where I can help is one element of that. But a key component really is on the development finance side. And, from my point of view, although this has been a long evolving conversation, that finance things does seem to be evolving, at least in the short term. The World Bank's Ascent programme has got a commitment of 251 million, and also the EU have allocated 500 million's worth of funding as part of an energy package for Malawi. So, I mean, some of that needs to go somewhere, and hopefully we can help to target some of these things around the renewables elements that are involved in the things that we do. So I think, in that sense, there's an opportunity that we need to take. We can try and capitalise on that, and that's something we can try and do together through the SNP involvement, but also involvement of the universities in Malawi and here in Scotland. I think there's ways of accessing different sorts of funding, and I know we continue to look at these different sorts of routes together, and I would continue to encourage you to all to to do that and to engage with us here at Strathclyde if that is appropriate. But I think, so that's the requirement, the funding, but there's also the element of building local capacity, and any efforts that we do really need to be able to feed into that as well. So, and that applies, to projects that might be concerned with the national grid, but also those that are, difficult to reach in an electricity grid sense something. But I think we'll hear a bit more about this in some of the presentations today, in the Solar Aid presentation that we have. So, I mean, the focus of the event at that NEC conference really would include things like the shift in policy. So there is some movement there. People are starting to think about these things a bit more. Investment opportunities, some of which I've just mentioned. But there's also things that were mentioned in concerning the strategic direction for sustainable energy development in Malawi, and that's been very positive. Strathclyde, through the GRC programme that I lead with my colleagues, we've been partnering with REIAMA and at the NEC for the last couple of years. That conference we've seen grow and grow, and there's a wider set of attendance, and that's been, international visitors, but also, and in particular, prominent support from government. And I think that is that and the range of funders who are lining up, like UNDP and the EU, as we've already mentioned. I think that's a prospect for actually trying to do something. So I am hopeful, really, that our continued working together and involvement through things like the SMP, but also through that National Energy Conference in Malawi, can be a real focal point for the energy side of things that we are concerned with and are looking to develop together. Bringing the stakeholders together, sharing the learning, understanding what the policy issues are, and so forth. And it's a key component of the Global Renewables Centre that we lead for the Scottish Government and REIAMA, where we try and build on these things, collate and share stakeholder contributions, identify themes that are targeted specifically for the country that we can assist with from here in Scotland, and so forth. At that conference in Malawi, at the NEC conference, there was several contributions which we tried to coordinate here from the Scottish side, and that was also very encouraging, because that was trying to strengthen those links between Scotland and Malawi, and we were able to try and help realise that through some of the energy components, and that was in a broad range of areas, grid integration, mini-grid business models, e-mobility, and so forth. And, in addition to some of those the speakers that were there, we also have had some contributions that were linked with the Scotland-Malawi partnership. At our last meeting, one of the speakers was a guy called Dr. Kyle Smith, who runs a company in Scotland called Energy Mutual. And following that meeting, he connected with the team at the Malawi Energy Generation Authority and was able to provide them with some electricity generating equipment, which got put out into Malawi. So that established a link from a very remote Scottish area called Knoydart and the Mulanje community through in Malawi. So I think we should be quite proud of that, actually, for making those connections. And it's something we can build on. Also here at Strathclyde, there's new student global citizenship links that we've been pursuing. So Aaron, who I know is on the call, and Damien, who's here in the room today, they've been leading VIP projects with Malawian university students. And I think that is something we're very pleased about, and we'd love to see that being encouraged and do more of that. Also, through Aaron's leadership on the project with UNDP, we've been testing mini-grid and productive uses of energy with Self-Help Africa. And that is really trying to get a bit more understanding, particularly around the data side of things, which is a key component of understanding how we run the engineering part, but also speaks very strongly and factually to the finance side of things, because you can use that data to try and build business cases and gain investment. So that is their key developments beyond just that academic contributions. So moving on, I guess it's great to be joined today by colleagues from REIAMA, so Brave and Charles, and also Sithembile, who's going to be joining us online. So we're going to hear some great talks from them and find out a bit more about what's going on, from the Malawian side. So after my very long introduction, I do apologise, but I felt like I had a lot I wanted to say to and remind you of. I think I am really looking forward to hearing the insights from our speakers today, our invited speakers, and I want to encourage everyone to take the opportunity, when we've got this expertise here, people who really know what's going on and what's needed, to ask questions, make use of the chat facility, whether they're related to the National Energy Conference, maybe you've got some questions to do with that, or generally on energy access or renewables use in Malawi, we would love to hear from you and we would love to connect with you. So please do take that opportunity. So without further ado, if I go back to my agenda, I think I'm handing over to Charles and Dave, is that right? Charles is online. So thank you. I look forward to hearing your talk.
Yeah, so REIAMA stands for Renewable Energy Industries Association of Malawi. It's an association for all the interested parties in the renewable energy sector in Malawi. So REIAMA was actually registered in 2000 and founded in 1999 to become an institution that is the voice for all the private sector players in the country. Recently, from 2023, REIAMA started initiating the renewable energy conferences at national level with the support from different partners. And we are happy today to see the Scottish government through Investor Strathclyde also supporting this initiative that actually helps in knowledge exchange. So the 2025 conference was the 4th edition. That was organized under the theme Unlocking Finance for Energy Security, and where we had about 266 delegates participating virtually as well as physically, both local and international. And as I said, apart from the Scottish government through Investor Strathclyde that provided the financial as well as the technical support, we had other partners like EU, commercial banks, Oxfam, SolarAid, SunKing, UNDP, and other government partners. Next slide, please. As I said, in terms of the context of the participants, I'll go straight into the second point. So these participants actually came from different disciplines like academia, policymakers, legislators, the media, practitioners, investors, financial institutions, youth, as well as women institutions or led institutions in the country. Next slide. So actually, I'll present how the 2025 conference was organized in terms of the keynote speeches. Rather, the 2025 Energy Conference was organized taking into account that we had keynote speeches, we had the interactive participation, as well as question and answer sessions. We had panel discussions, exhibitions, breakout sessions. We also have the Mpamvu Awards. So in our local language, Chewa, Mpamvu means energy. So it's like we are awarding some of the institutions that have performed well in different categories within the energy sector. And we also utilize the energy conference as a platform to organize the annual general meeting for REIAMA members. The objectives for the 2025 conference was to identify gaps within the energy access and investment needs, showcase opportunities for renewable energy financing, promote private sector participation and small and medium enterprises bankability, discuss policy and regulatory reforms for energy security, and explore innovations like e-mobility, climate financing, and others. So as you can see, these objectives are actually parting with the nature of the participants that we actually had in the conference. Next slide, please.
Yeah.
So my core business today is just to provide a few key takeaways on the conference in terms of financing renewable energy projects, taking into account that we had the policymakers, we had commercial banks, investors, and other institutions like regulators under one house. So I'll just talk about these key takeaways. So the first one is that Malawi faces a massive financing gap that requires diverse capital sources. It was mentioned that Malawi needs about 5.5 billion US dollars to meet its target for the 2030 energy access. So the gap, which is about 4.95 billion, demands actually collaboration from different investors, climate finance grants, green bonds, blended finance, carbon markets, in order for this to be achieved. And another gap is the bankability and quality of projects determine access to finance. This key takeaway came into play because it was noted that bankability for the SMEs and other investors is actually an issue. So the conference actually unpacked the need for investors actually to stress much on our investors actually having good proposals, project proposals with the solid business cases and proper documentation for proper credibility, because this was noted that it's actually a gap within the sector. And there was also a need to use authenticated data that will actually help in building bankable projects that will really handle critical issues that are a true reflection of what is actually on the ground, not because someone has actually imposed because of any social or any feeling that situations are driven by what people are actually saying, but should be data-driven decisions that should drive actually the sector. So the feasibility studies are also important in order to help in cultivating bankable projects and the use of clear financial models that will really not help in business to strive, but also help to take out the situation, the current energy situation, to something that is better. So there was a call for all the sectors like the donors, the banks, and other institutions to take a leading role in helping the issues of bankability and ensuring quality of the projects, because this determines proper access to finance. Next slide. Another issue that came out is that policy reforms are central to attracting investment. This actually tackled the need for the government to actually bring in deliberate policies that actually will help to meet the target that Malawi has set, both for 2030 as well as the 2065 agenda. For instance, there was a project called Ngwengwe Fund where SMEs were had access to capital in order for them to increase their stock and also to increase the sales by the end of the day, which has seen raising the access rate with about 5 to 6% only because of that deliberate initiative. So this actually emphasized on the need to have these deliberate policies by different institutions. In detail, I'll mention that issues like mini-grid policies, if they are deliberately adopted in order to attract investors, it means it will only not be on the investment aspect, but also it will help to increase our generation capacity. Stronger IPP, that's Independent Power Producers Framework, carbon market guidelines, and all related policies that will help in scaling up or increasing the financial opportunities for the investors are actually welcome to helping in increasing both investment as well as access to energy. So these reforms have to be actually adopted deliberately under the drive of the government so that the sector becomes attractive to investors as well as other donors. Next slide. Local banks are stepping into green financing, but need capacity building. We have seen about 3 local banks in Malawi developing different products for the energy sector. So this is a good development because it creates a platform where investors have access to capital. And also, if it's on the demand side, it means the end users have access actually to different energy products. However, there's a challenge with our local banks because it seems most of them actually do not have that technical understanding on how this sector actually operates. So this is the area that the conference actually uncovered, that there's a need for that item actually to be looked into. Next slide, please. Another item that came out was blended finance, carbon markets, and philanthropic capital game changers. So the issue was that we are looking at how best can we minimize the risks that are actually involved in the renewable energy business. Hence, there were recommendations for adoption of carbon markets, and it's quite interesting to see that the government has actually adopted now um, the carbon carbon credit framework that is supposed to be that will be used now by investors that are interested in this business of carbon credits, and also looking at what other countries are doing in South Africa and Egypt, where some shared actually some stories on how deliberate financing options are helping to scale up investment and also attract other investments, are actually helping in increasing the energy access. So this actually touches also down to the element of deliberate policies, but now specifically under the financial aspect. Next slide. Another issue that came out was on infrastructure and grid reliability as key in boosting investor confidence. Like recently, Malawi, there's a project called MoMA, that's Mozambique Malawi Interconnector. It's a project that cuts on road shedding, for instance. If a country has many hours without power, definitely investors are actually not attracted. But projects like rather infrastructure, as well as having a reliable grid connectivity, it's one area that brings confidence to investors because they are sure that they'll be operating throughout the day without any electricity cuts. Next slide. Lastly, it was an issue to do with coordination. It was a call for coordination amongst the sectors, and also in order to avoid duplication of efforts and maximize the available financing options. So it was a call to REIAMA, the government agencies like the regulators, generators of energy, and even the local councils to take a collective approach in these initiatives. Because what was noted was that similar projects could actually be implemented, yet they could have been done by, let's say, one agency, but with a comprehensive approach, so that we create proper room for other institutions to be doing other activities, and also to utilize the limited resources that the government, even the private sectors actually have, in order to make sure that projects are well tracked and institutions are actually responsible for specific projects or outcomes within the energy sector. So in conclusion, the conference looked at finance as an area that needs collective approach in order to achieve universal energy access. And also it calls for innovation from different sectors. It actually includes the academia, like through research and also sharing of knowledge through publications to be at the center stage of helping investors as well as donors in achieving the best from what we have. So in a nutshell, this is what the conference actually brought out. Thank you for your time.
Good afternoon in Malawi. My name is Sithembile Tembo. I am the founder of Grid and Beyond Limited Company. It's an energy company where we're focusing on last mile solutions for both on and off grid. I am also a board member for Renewable Energy Association of Malawi, and I chair the Gender Equality and Social Inclusion Committee under REIAMA board. So I'll precisely talk about the energy sector in general in my first two slides. And then I'll continue to talk about what is being done so far as GESI is concerned in the energy sector. So to begin with, in Malawi, I think the gap between men and women in the energy sector, both formal employment, informal, and entrepreneurship is very wide. So because of that, REIAMA, in collaboration with the Ministry of Energy, decided to engage the women in energy to get an understanding of what the issues are so that we can come up with solutions to minimize the gap, to reduce the gap that is currently there. So last year, it's when REIAMA engaged the women in the energy sector. And the issues that came out are common across board. So even as Grid and Beyond, the challenges that are listed out here represent Grid and Beyond and the women in the energy sector. So on the challenges that came out during the engagement, there was a concern that there are no women in leadership positions, particularly in policy, utility companies, renewable energy companies, and the issues that came out from that was that in terms of capacity building, whether it's self-initiated or externally supported, it's men who are preferred compared to women. So that's why there is no women in leadership positions. The other challenge was that there is information gap, because during the meeting, there were some other companies, for example, ESCOM and Genco, who are already implementing their gender policies, but it was not common knowledge in the sector. So it came out that there is that information gap. We know that there is a gap between women and men in the energy sector, but we really don't know to what extent. What's the percentage of men? What's the percentage of women? So during that discussion, it was also discussed that maybe the Ministry of Energy can act as a data bank whereby they can consolidate data and come up with a report to say, if we're saying in Malawi women are not taking up leadership positions, this is what we mean. The other challenge was is insufficient trainings. There is need for capacity building from an early stage to have more girls admitted in technical courses. So on that one, I think it goes down to secondary school education level, where girls tend to avoid STEM courses. So obviously they will end up doing other courses, not engineering courses. And there's also the vocational training schools, the technical colleges that are supported by TVETA. A lot of projects that support vocational trainings, for some reason, they target men, not women. The other challenge is lack of support for projects led by women. But this is because almost all women that are into entrepreneurship right now, they are startups. So I think the projects are developed not in favor of startup entrepreneurial initiatives, more especially women. The other challenge was lack of renewable energy projects, specifically targeting women. And the group went on to come up with proposed solutions. So number one, access to data. On this one, the other school of thought is that if we have the data, then we can go ahead and probably implement mentorship projects, mentorship programs. So that will help in identifying the mentors locally. The other solution is access to finance, especially for startup entrepreneurs. That one was to do with apart from banks. I think Charles already mentioned that there is lack of bankability business proposals right now, especially for startups. So it's a challenge for a woman entrepreneur, for example, or a youth club to access finance from finance companies. And so if we can probably have targeted initiatives that will end up into coming up with bankable business proposals, then that would be great. Then another solution is the mentorship programs. So on that one, we thought of local and international. I'll give an example. Right now, there is an ongoing mentorship program under SACRI and GWNT. But from Malawi, it's only 3 women, 1 mentor and 2 mentees, while in other countries, the number is a bit higher. And then there's capacity building, career development, and entrepreneurship. So the discussion here was that men, when they, for example, when they come out of the university, for example, on their own, they would go for upgrading or doing some other career development initiatives, which are supported by the projects right now, most of them. but the women are not. They're not coming up for such initiatives. And then intentional hiring practices by employers to create space for women. On this one, the discussion was that other than a statement that just says, for example, REIAMA is an equal employer, but there should be some other factors that will favor women. Not that they should be hired just because they're women, but they should be hired because they are empowered women, they are capacitated women. So that was that. Employers to create space for women. Others have already started, for example, ESCOM. ESCOM right now, they are incentivizing quite a lot. There are women engineers, women employees. So, for example, if I'm going to the field and I have a baby, they'll even pay for my baby's accommodation and my nanny's accommodation, things like those. Because it was discovered that women shun some of the positions just because they couldn't complement their mother role and the employment role. So that's that on the solutions. Now, when all the challenges were identified and everything else, so REIAMA thought of supporting some of the activities that were outlined. Now, to support the initiatives, I think REIAMA received funding from the Scottish Government through the University of Strathclyde. And the following are the activities that were implemented. So I have highlighted GRC project support in this presentation simply because it was open to the public. There are some other initiatives and support that came, but they are, for example, specifically targeted to an institution, for example. But for the GRC project support, REIAMA was calling for the public to be applying for all the opportunities that were there. So there was a financial management training for female entrepreneurs that happened in all the 3 regions, and the total number of females that were trained under that training was 30. All of them were business owners, and some were fresh graduates, but they've started their own businesses, and they are REIAMA members. There was also a training for female and youth graduates with focus on female engagement on renewable energy business models and project development. This one is the one that as a sector we feel that it has a great impact, because out of the 80 graduates that were trained, right now we're talking of 3 registered entrepreneurs that came out from the training, and that they're doing good. We are still working with them to see how best REIAMA and the sector can support them, because not all of them can be taken on by the employment sector. And there was a training, renewable energy training, specifically on solar installation. So from the GRC support, REIAMA supported 20, 12 women and 8 boys who went for a 2-week short course that organized by Mzuzu University. And from this group as well, we are still working with them to nurture those who want to go into full entrepreneurship, and if someone to go for further studies, REIAMA is still working with them to see how best they can be supported. There was another value addition training for women groups in productive uses of energy in mini grids. So these are existing women group businesses that REIAMA just thought of empowering them in terms of value addition. So I'll give an example for the women group and Chipopoma mini grid in Rumpi. They were already into bakery. They were doing bakery but using biomass previously, and then they got support from UNDP with electrical bakery equipment. But by the time we REIAMA, by the time REIAMA was meeting this group, they were only baking bread. But after the value addition training for the women for the productive use, currently they have now gone into making lemonade, because the area has a lot of lemons. And the other point of supporting these women groups is that a lot of these mini grids are in the rural areas where they only use power for lighting homes and small businesses. So we were looking at creating anchor loads for these mini grids as part of the sustainability strategy for the mini grid operators. So all these training sessions were conducted with representatives from the Ministry of Energy and the Ministry of Gender as policy holders. So from all the trainings that were conducted, right now, there are 3 women groups who were supported by REIAMA through an open application process. And these 3 groups were partnered with Maiwala project, which Brave will talk about. But we're happy to report that so far it's the businesses have taken off, and we are hoping for the best. Support will be needed in terms of trainings and access to finance, but the fact that we've started, I think that's a very good step for REIAMA. So in total, the GRC support trained 110 participants, and these are women and youth and fresh graduates. So that's the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Tembo. I'm sure we've got some questions in the chat because it's a very important topic. I'm going to hand over now to Brave, who we have the honour of having here in Scotland today to do the presentation. And he'll tell us about some of his solar-related work. That's excellent. Thank you.
Looking all right on that end? Yeah. All right. Good morning and good afternoon. I'll try to speed up my presentation because I know the time. Yeah, so my name is Brave Mahonie. I'm the General Manager of Solar Aid Malawi. I'm also the President of Renewable Energy Industries Association of Malawi. So I'll be wearing those two hats as I make my presentation. Just moving forward. Sometimes we need to go to okay. So the presentation that I'll make is about a solution today. We're talking of universal energy access by 2030. 2030 is not far from today. But we're still anticipating that 500 million people will still be without access to basic energy by 2030. If we don't change the way how we're doing our things today. So my presentation will focus on radical solution that we have been trying to work on in Malawi to bring universal energy access to many lives today in Malawi. If we don't change our ways, people still be using kerosene as source of basic lighting in their homes. Always when I make these presentations, rooms like this, it makes me feel sad a little bit looking at how bright this light is. Without this light, maybe we couldn't be in this room. But somewhere out there in Malawi, I come from, and many Africans are using that. Those can't afford kerosene, candles, they have to use open fire. And this is the reality of today. It's not about just a slide, a nice slide. It is a reality of today. So the challenge is lack of access to electricity. In terms of off-grid electrification, actually my slides, my presentation will focus a lot on off-grid solutions. So in general, solar home systems have become an immediate solution to providing electricity, basic electricity, to people in rural and last mile communities. Mostly is through pay-as-you-go. So many customers or people are basically paying for the hardware. That's a plug-and-play basic solar home system. But affordability of these systems is very, very low. We're talking about 28% of the people in the rural communities have got the ability to pay and own these simple and basic gadgets. Overpricing of the product, again, that's a big issue because doing business in these communities is difficult for companies. Infrastructure is low. And we're talking of income levels of these customers is very, very low. Their buying power is very, very limited. So the risk to the business is very high. That's why they have to add some extra margins for them to cover the risk. At the moment, it's about 40%, annual equivalent rate that they add on top of the actual price of this product, so as they absorb all the risks associated with doing business in these last mile markets. That's not possible. I mean, we're talking of a challenged person whose income is very low, selling an expensive gadget and expecting to achieve universal energy access. Unless something is wrong, otherwise it's not adding up. And then credit risk assessment of these customers, again, is quite a challenge, both for investors to actually understand who has ability to pay. They have to be physically on the ground first, and that's a cost. Who's taking on that cost? No one. Private sector is not ready. So at the end of the day, they end up selling their products to customers who don't have ability to actually afford that system. And then also talking of creating debt, because if we're selling a customer on pay-as-you-go, basically we're asking that customer to enter into debt agreement with a company. So we are ending up tying a lot of people with limited income on debt, which they can't service. So to a company, it's a risk. And a customer, it's a challenge. And also there's an area of accumulation of waste. We're selling huge amounts of solar home systems right now as gadgets to customers. But we know that in 3 to 5 years' time, those gadgets will no longer work. So where would they be? It's like cell phones, right? We all have cell phones, smartphones. When they die, we end up just packing them somewhere, we buy another one. And it's exactly the same situation that we're creating ourselves. So we're talking of climate change on one hand, but in a few years' time, we'll be talking of waste management because we've dumped so many products in Africa without a clear solution on how to take them back and dispose them responsibly. So there's that challenge again of accumulation of waste. So what do we need? We need a radical business model to complement existing business models, such as pay-as-you-go, mini grids, rural electrification initiatives, if we are to achieve SDG 7 before 2030 or by 2030. But this has to take a comprehensive approach. So responding to this, what SolarAid did is to set up a business model called Energy as a Service. Basically, it is tweaking the existing business model that have already been adopted by the sector. Because today we're talking of pay-as-you-go business model, which is basically selling a solar gadget to a customer. We're selling the hardware. So what Energy as a Service does is to flip that around. We don't sell the hardware. Instead, we simply sell electricity that the hardware generates. So the hardware stays on the books of SolarAid. These are our assets. We've invested in assets, we've deployed assets, and we are operating assets that provide electricity. It means the user has to pay for that service that they are getting. What does it do? We take on the responsibility of maintenance of the system. We are in full charge of maintenance, full charge of customer service. Now we're talking of customers really getting a service, because if we don't give them a quality service, they don't pay for electricity, we don't generate revenue, we don't sustain our operations. So it is our interest to make sure that we are genuinely bringing electricity, a quality service to the customers that have signed up. Also talking of flexibility, with pay-as-you-go, they have a grid contract, how much they have to pay each month, either they like it or not. It's a contractual agreement. Flexibility is very, very low. With Energy as a Service, customers can buy as low as electricity for a single day. So, I mean, I've got my colleagues from Malawi here, the way how we live in the rural areas, we call ganyu, meaning pieceworks. So you work today, you receive $1, then you have to make your budget survive on that $1. Tomorrow you go again, you work, you find another $1. Again, you calculate your living of that day based on that $1. So everything is hand to mouth. You know, that's this is like the common way on how we are living out there. So it means the business model also has to follow the pattern of how people actually earn and use the income that they have today. So flexibility is key. That's why a customer can buy electricity for as low as for a single day. If they have got enough for a week, they buy electricity for a week. And service and maintenance, I've already mentioned about that. So in case someone doesn't use it, they're free to actually tell us, then we'll take off the gadget and put it in another house because they are signing up to be a customer. They don't own the gadgets, so we can move it at any time if a customer cannot afford for whatever reason. So basically, Energy as a Service is a replica of utility-based service. You and me, we don't own the infrastructure that brings electricity in our homes. That infrastructure belongs to a utility company. In Malawi, it belongs to ESCOM. So in the same way, people in the rural communities should not be pushed to own the infrastructure. They should simply use the service. So that's the model, and that's how basically it works. And we're calling it Light a Village, because the goal is whatever village we pick to work in, we want to electrify every single person who's not connected in there. 100% electrification is our target. So that's why it's called Light a Village. And the system that we use are the solar home system, so that's like basic. We've got Sun King type and Omnivore type. We have installed both of those systems so that we can also compare the quality of systems. So basically it comes with a solar panel, 12-watt solar panel. We've got 3 lighting points, 200 lumens each, so a total of 600 lumens, which are really, really bright. And then a battery pack and phone charging cables and the nice smart switching. These are cordless switches, so they look really smart when you install in the house. Someone really, yeah, they look really smart. So basically, these are the systems that we are installing at the moment. So current progress, well, that's the traditional authority Kasakula. We're working in a community called Kasakula in GESI district, which has about 8,000 households, non-connected households. So the TA there enjoying himself doing the last installation when we reach 100% connectivity. So where are we to date? Yeah, the goal is to electrify the entire community, and we deliberately picked Kasakula. We worked very closely with the Ministry of Energy to assess, based on the rural electrification strategy, which areas are the poorest and the remotest. And the government does not have plans to connect in those communities in the next 5 to 10 years, either through mini grid, grid extension, that's off-grid solutions. And then we launched those. Kasakula or GESI district was on top 3 districts. So that's why we ended up going there. And in terms of the timeline, so we started this project in 2021, 2022, where 500 homes were connected as a proof of concept to understand customers' willingness to pay, the adoption rate, and all that stuff. So it was quite successful. Customers were happy, demand was high, and they were paying. For the whole year, we worked with 500 customers, and the payment rates were very, very strong. So after that, then we went again in 2023, where we added 2,000 systems in the same area. So again, the trends that we observed in phase 1 maintained, and we are convinced that there is something in there that could actually work. So we went back in phase 3, we called that stress testing. So in stress testing, we kept the team the same, the operation modalities the same, but added more systems. So we increased number of customers serviced by 1 sales representatives from actually about 100 to about 500. So that really stressed our operational structure. The goal was to understand what are the problems that will come out from this if we want to scale it up. What are those critical challenges? Document all those challenges and work on the structure to tackle those challenges before scaling up. And then this year, 2024 up to 2025, so in August 2025, we connected all the targeted households, 8,013. So today I can tell you that if you go to Kasakula, you will not find a home which is not connected. If they sleep in darkness, it's because they don't have money to pay, to buy electricity, not that they don't have the ability to have electricity in the house. So that's what has changed there. Again, is to demonstrate that SDG 7 can be achieved today with a model that can sustain itself today. Then we can work from there. If we have done this in 1 TA in the remotest and the most challenged community, why can't we do this in all the TAs? And at the TA level, we'll nicely, understand the cost of setting this up at TA level, the operational structure at TA level, and then it's just a matter of duplicating all the TAs. I think we could radically connect everyone. So basically, that's where we are to date. In terms of how we actually operate it, there's high-level community engagement. It's a model which is pro-poor and is anchored on community participation. So we work with the TA, the area development committees, the village development committees, and all that stuff. We work with them. Who does the installation and customer service? We recruit the local people. So we're looking at people, especially the young people who have just graduated, they are staying in the village, they have nothing to do, or they've got limited income streams. We bring them in under the recommendation of the community leaders. We train them on installation, maintenance, and basic service right away in the village. As it is to date, we have got 80 of the community service representatives, each one managing 100 homes. And they receive 10% of the revenue that we have collected from their community as their remuneration. So we're talking of creating jobs today right away in the villages where people are actually based. So all the installations, maintenance is being done locally. After the 100% connection, of course, we had a big celebration there. That's the community service representatives who are working, doing all the customer service work. So 80 of them, they're working with us. At night, that's how the village now looks like. Really instantly transforming from total darkness to light. They love putting one light outside. Actually, we didn't know about this when we were designing this model. This village is very close to Nchisi Forest, for those of you who have been in the area. And the hyenas actually coming from the forest, going into the villages, especially at night, attacking the livestock. But hyenas hate light. So when we said, they said, almost everyone said, put one light outside and it has to face where the livestock were. The reason is chasing out the hyenas. So that's why we see a lot of lights, despite it's just like a 3-lamp system, but they prefer having 2 lights in the house and 1 outside to protect their livestock. Yeah, so that's one of the entrepreneurs. The impact, of course, to the community and the country, we're talking of instant, change. Instead of burning this stuff, now people can have quality light in their homes instantly. Girls, actually, this is another big thing. When we went to this community in 2022, the pass rate of girls was very, very low. When we asked teachers why, despite that they were already creating some efforts of providing electricity in a classroom so that students, especially exam class students, should come at night to read. But still more, the pass rate of boys was always higher than the girls because the girls were not attending to those classes. It was difficult for them to travel. Of course, we know that. Sexual harassments and all that. So it was mostly favoring the boys. When we went in, now that almost every household has got light, it has increased number of girls who are now actually doing well because they're reading in their homes. They don't have to travel at night to go to a classroom to read at night. So I think one of the immediate changes that we've seen is number of girls actively participating in educational activities. Actually, we asked the local primary education advisor to track the pass rate of the learners so that we can have something to talk against. And we can see that the trend is going up in terms of pass rate of girls. Of course, we know that it's not just about lighting to allow a child to pass, but the number of hours you spend studying, of course, contributes to your performance. So we are still attributing access to light as one major thing. Actually, for the first time ever, they sent 3 girls to a local secondary school called Kasakula Secondary School, which is very impressive. So for us, this is really educating a girl child is educating the nation, an instant change. And of course, businesses, they are also keeping their shops open for a long time. Happy community and all that stuff. So basically, these are just like some of the beautiful moments that we capture on people's faces. Key learnings so far. 1, the location where we're working, there's extreme poverty. Kasakula has got 97% of people living there are living under the poverty line, below the poverty line, 97% of the population. We did this study before we actually went in there. Grid connection, less than 1%, mostly just trading centers. And you can see cables passing through people's homes they can't afford it. And also the cost of operating there for Eskom is so huge, because all what they really need as of now is basic lighting. So looking at the infrastructure expansion into these communities versus the revenue they're creating doesn't make any commercial sense yet. So it's something that I think we can look into. And then, of course, minimal off-grid solar operations or penetration is very, very low. Of course, it's very difficult, it's far, and doesn't make business sense. So basically, that's what it is. To connect one household as it is right now is costing around $100. Then a house is connected. That is shipping a system from China into Malawi, traveling, taking it into the community, doing all the installations, and start operating it. It costs around us $100 as of now. Every household, of course, has a connection at the moment. How much they pay is 100 kwacha, which is equivalent to about 6 cents per day. So that gives us adequate revenue to today. 95% of the houses that have connected there are smallholder farmers. That also, again, clearly opens up an opportunity to start testing other models like energy as a service in agriculture, making solar pumps available so that we can increase their income and food security, because we know exactly the profile of people that we are working with, and there's a lot of water in this area. So already that's something that we are developing right now. We've got a small grant from World Bank to test energy as a service in productive use of energy, specifically agriculture. So we're building on the data that we have created. So this is just to share with you a little bit on the revenue trends. So can this model generate revenue? Yes, it can. As you can see on the graph, the blue line is the total target that we should be generating. If every customer pays 100 kwacha every single day, then we should be on that blue line. The reality, of course, not everyone can afford that. The actual, that's the yellow line, you can see down there, clearly moving down. In 2024, that's where we did the stress testing. So we experienced a lot of challenges, which we documented, and that's what we wanted, it was on purpose. Like customers wanting to pay, but not being able to find a customer service representative because they are managing a lot of people. What we did was to move from manual payments to automated payments through the mobile money platform. That automatically changed the amount of revenues that we are collecting because customers are able to pay on their own right now. So those are the things that we are changing. Our goal is to take the yellow line closer to that blue line as much as possible. And the target is at least 80% of the blue line should be collected in revenue. To run the operations, so that's the gray line that you can see here. This is what we really need to run the operations today. So as of now, 60% of the revenue that we're collecting is enough to cover all the operating expenses. That gives us 40% balance, which we can then put into the reserves, so that in 5 years' time, when the batteries are dead, we can easily swap the batteries or put in new batteries, fix it. This is the line of sustainability, and that's what we want it to be. That's where I want it to be. So if we put this line closer to the blue line, all it means is we're increasing the surplus revenue that then we can sustain. So with the funding that we have today, and the whole model is designed on infrastructure financing, so if we can get someone, a government or a development partner, procure the actual systems, which we deploy in there, you don't have to go and fund that again. Then the operators will continue running it. And also creating an opportunity for local institutions or local entrepreneurs who are investing in the energy sector. Well, we can't do this alone to electrify the whole country. We need a lot of local enterprises to come on board as operators. So the way how we're seeing it, probably we'll have one, either company or government, buying and owning the assets, so that's the systems, and then contracting local companies to become as operators, who then partner with the asset company to actually run those systems on the ground. In that way, we're creating employment for so many people and business opportunities for so many locally owned companies. So that's just to share a little bit on the OPEX. Any conclusions? So there's potential for sustainability. Affordability is very high for customers. rapid deployment. We connect 2,000 customers in 10 working days. So that's how fast it is. So it's just a question of having assets. Deploying them, sustaining them is not a problem, but having the actual assets is the problem, and that's where it will cost money. And it's locally embedded, both the operators as well as the service team that is there. And it creates an ecosystem for further products, because we gather all this data, all these customers into one pool. Then you can really analyze their consumer behaviors and start creating other solutions tailored to the problems that we get. And of course, it complements other efforts which are already there. So basically, we're looking at this as a potential utility extension, either bundling it with mini grids or grid or standalone in some communities. Like strategically, it fits into different holes altogether. And also did a comparison there to see where it really fits. So as you can see, the service kind of takes all the boxes. It complements with pay-as-you-go. It complements with mini grids. It complements with a grid extension. So it's just a question of where does it add maximum value, and then we deploy resources in there. We're also looking at replicating this in other countries. We're not creating this as a Malawi-specific solution, but Sub-Saharan Africa solution. So already we have partnered with Easy Solar in Sierra Leone and Moon in Senegal, where we're also running similar pilots. Actually, in Sierra Leone, the government has already adopted this and included in the Energy Compact. About 40,000 households will be connected there through this model. In Mozambique, there's also a pilot being developed at the moment. So it's designed to be a regional solution. To accommodate other countries, we have set up REAL. Maybe you can also go and check. That's Rural Energy Access Lab. So SolarAid is incubating it at the moment as a central platform to generate knowledge about this model and create the technical support to support replication in other countries. So I think GRC, that's another very good partner to work with when it comes to rural electrification. Reach out to REAL team, it will be very, very helpful. Next steps is to really get deep into the financial understanding, financial modeling. We really need to understand all the details, cost analysis, so that we can see different geographies and different markets. Subsidy required, because we know it will not only rely on private sector. We need governments to come on board to make it work. So we need to clearly define how much do we need from governments and other partners. And then continue with the analysis and full impact report, the social impact. What does it mean when we have done this at scale? And then integration, that's the most important one actually for this meeting, is how can we integrate this model with already existing solutions? I know in Scotland in general, especially through the SMP, have been so instrumental in deployment of mini grids. With the knowledge from mini grids, what more can we learn from this model, and how could we merge them together? Well, I think there's something in there. So this level scale up, that's our immediate target. At the moment, we've done in one TA. Now we want to do at the entire district, which will be around 100,000 households. So which is like 10 times more what we've done. But that now is to demonstrate scalability of this model. So that's what we're doing at the moment. Yeah, so with this model, we believe we could reach 2 million people quite easily and very, very fast in Malawi, if we can secure financing for the actual actual systems initially. There's a small video here. I don't know if it will play. If it doesn't play, then we can stop. Is it? Oh, yeah, there you go.
Nange nechaje moni makala mari samula ni zera kiri. Ndondi ni malima. Ni osagala ali kwa ni besagala luwanga ngalitoji nyali mene mbegeza zintu zodi simaziziwa mwanitsimisa umasuma sampodi azanga mene makala mungwira. Munena usasire bomba kapena kaya mubyo kudera kwina mwenye mutsi mene mwachitira kuno. Kaya mubwera soko kuno munena kuti mubiririze ngati mbiri kwani bangira ipeso mwayolelewu azatu agura akati kudani kusindikira.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you very much. So, colleagues, does anybody have any questions from here in the room, or maybe there are some online at all? I don't know if anybody's been monitoring the chat for the talk this morning. Would anybody like to start? No? Yeah, Stuart.
Thank you for the fascinating presentations. Ray, may I ask, in terms of the local engineers and customer service providers, I think you mentioned there were 8. Is that something, I noticed that they're being recommended by community leaders. Is that something that REIAMA thinks is an opportunity for females to become more involved in the energy sector in terms of employment? Has that been a factor? Has gender been a factor in that?
Yes, it has. Actually, another program that we are running as Solar Aid is called Maiwala, meaning Shining Mothers. So Shining Mothers is a model which has been developed to partner with already existing village savings and loan groups, which are mostly owned by women as members. So we are training them on the energy component for them to take 2 routes. Those who are already entrepreneurs and are a part of this group to really strengthen their entrepreneurial skills so that they can invest and own energy businesses, micro energy businesses, where the majority of them are selling either vegetables and it's just kind of a common, trading activities. So want to diversify their trading opportunities and venture into energy. So we have got that dedicated project. As I'm speaking right now, we are working with CARE International through their microfinance arm called Lend with Care. And through Lend with Care, we are raising capital that we make available to the female entrepreneurs who wants to venture into energy business. So we are doing that already. We've got 140 groups recruited and working with right now. The goal is to have 180 that will cover the entire country, so that these micro energy businesses should form as the anchor of creating energy hubs in communities, which in future, it will also reduce the cost of other off-grid operators, but they don't have to go out there and recruit agents and all that. They'll simply have to partner with already existing entrepreneurs who understand the energy and then help them to cut the cost of operating locally. So yes, we do have, and they're part and parcel of this.
Great. Anybody online, or is there? Oh, sorry. Oh, this one first, and then you.
Hello there.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Hello.
So, yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, my name's John Hunter. I'm a trustee of a small Zambian charity. How do you deal with a situation when somebody can't pay? Possibly this is caused by illness in a family. Do you have a fund or what?
So at the moment, because we've just started this model, what we are doing is to observe and learn as much as we can. The policy that we have is we're giving people about 90 days. Within 90 days, if someone doesn't pay consecutively for 90 days, then you have to understand why. Either they are too poor to have it, or they just don't want it. If they don't want it, we remove it. If it's all down to financial issues, then we need to find a solution tailored to that household. So that's one thing that we're doing immediately. In long term, something we're exploring in Malawi is to integrate with already existing pro-poor solutions. So like the government has got a social cash transfer program where they are paying poorest families amounts of money every month. So we want to see if it's possible to integrate monthly energy payments to the already existing social cash transfer program, so that as they deploy the cash to these families, a portion of that can come to us to pay for their energy. Then that takes off the burden from the customer. So those are some of the areas that we are exploring, and of course we need to work with different partners to make them work.
Thanks very much.
We've got a question from Crispin online as well for Charles. Crispin, are you still there? Would you like to speak to the question? Briefly? Or Charles, if you've read the question in the chat, perhaps you could respond. No, if not, we will have one further question in the room, I think, sir. Would you say who you are? We can.
Fantastic presentation. My name is Gaius. I represent App Energies. Basically, we're looking at renewable energies project in Africa, focused on Africa. I just have one question in two parts. I can see that you've got plans to replicate what you're doing in Malawi and other regions. So I wanted to find out what are the barriers to entry in replicating your model in other regions, and also the barriers to payment collections when you deploy the solutions in regions.
I'll start with the barriers to collections. I think the operational structure is very important. As you could see when we were doing the stress testing, our operations were so lean, we've got limited presence in the actual villages closer to the customers. What it meant was we were losing a lot of revenue, not because customers were not willing to pay, but there was no clear platform for them to make it easier to make the payments. When we switched to mobile money platforms and automating the payments in the same communities completely went up. Secondly, we had to restructure the whole operations model, thereby increasing number of community service agents and reducing number of customers pay community service agents, which will increase the time that each community agent was spending to visit, monitor, and support the customers. So that helped again to increase our interaction with customers, customer satisfaction, and the revenues also went up. So the operational structure is so critical. Community buy-in is also very critical. For us, like the TA is acting more or less like the board chair of our operations on the ground. Like the TA is there where problems come in, before we even resolve them as a company, the TA jumps in and resolves them. So it has created that trust between us as a company and the community, because the leadership has got a strong buy-in of the program. But these things, you have to invest time to build it.
Sure, that's great. So I don't see any further questions here in the room or online. Well, I think I'll just update it. So in that case, thank you very much to all our speakers, to Charles Sithembile and to Brave. And oh, sorry, is there a further question here? Ah, well spotted. You could do this, by the way. In that case, Brave, one question at the bottom there, do you use 10% commissions for agents is the question, I think.
Yes, so all the community service representatives or agents, they receive 10% of the revenue that we have collected.
Right, okay, so that's good for that. There's a question here, I think, from Archie Marshall, who's a school teacher. And they were asked, I think this question is generally about enabling students, you know, to do their homework, etc. But schools could be a community hub. I guess they're suggesting that because they've got a particular place in the community, maybe they could be part of the energy hub.
Yes, so actually, I've talked a lot about households that have connected, but in this area, there are about 12 schools, so 10 primary schools and 2 secondary schools. We have also connected all the schools, 1 classroom, and the electricity fees are being paid by the community. So that's the school management committees.
I see.
They consolidate the payments from their communities and pay. So for the learners who still want to go and study in the classroom, they can still go there. Or teachers can also organize evening classes for some students at the school. So they can still do that.
Good.
There are also about 70 to 80 teacher houses, which we have also connected all of them. So even teachers that have got electricity, the school have got electricity, and then the house pots.
Yes, and I mean, partly building off that question is about whether this are the students themselves learning about how this system works and understand. Do they get to understand the business model and so the students who are in the schools who are benefiting from the lighting? I mean, they're obviously familiar with the systems that are there, but are you going to? Are the teachers intended to include any of the sort of education about how it's done into the curriculum or anything like that?
Yes, of course. Like those, before we go there, we'll hold proper meetings with all the community structures. One of it, the teachers, and where we do these meetings is in the classrooms. We call it teacher development centers. So that's where we go and hold all these meetings, and all the operations actually are centered around that. So we do educate teachers, the community members. Before we even get a customer to sign up, we do hold what we call customer education meetings, where we invite customers together and tell them the do's, the don'ts, the pros and the cons, and what is the model behind it, so that they make an informed decision. So up until that customer said, okay, I understand what I'm signing up to, and yes, I'll sign up. It means they've gone through this educational process that makes them to make those decisions.
Cool.
So there's that component of educating about renewable energy in general and how the actual model actually works.
Great. I think that's a really helpful stage because it allows people to understand how it works and how it can the benefits that it brings. So I think we have now dealt with all the questions, which is very good. Thank you for my assistance from the audience. It just remains for me to thank each of the three speakers who are today, and to basically, I just wanted to highlight one last thing really, which is for Scottish Government, myself and some colleagues run a thing called the Global Renewables Centre, which some of you might be familiar with, but that has a specific link between REIAMA and Strathclyde University. And it provides a framework for how we can essentially develop stakeholder networks in partnership with the in-country teams who are in the renewable energy area with people from here at Strathclyde. So we've been able to build some opportunities. Some of them I mentioned previously, but in addition, that could be from small charitable links all the way through to the larger scale funding opportunities that I mentioned at the start. So for those that are online and those that are in the room, it's a reminder for that is an available option. And I guess for today, from my point of view, thank you for your participation. I'm going to hand over to Stuart Brown, who is going to close the meeting down. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Stuart, as our chair. Thank you to the University of Strathclyde for hosting us for this meeting, to Damien for his work behind the scenes, to Chad and other SMP colleagues, and to everybody for coming in 3 dimensions here into the room and taking part online with a particularly strong online attendance today. Stuart began by reminding us that I think it was 25.9% of people don't have any access to electricity at all, but there's great scope in nations like Malawi with solar and hydro, and that there are resources such as the University of Strathclyde, the Global Renewables Centre, and the National Energy Conference that we've heard about today to understand the policy issues in Malawi. For universities in Scotland, such as the University of Strathclyde and universities of Malawi, to work together to provide these connections and interlinkages. Fantastic to hear as well, Stuart, of the result that came from the last Renewables Forum, where Dr. Kyle Smith has been in touch with the Malawi Generating Authority in Malawi, and aware that you're also having some dialogue with Smilawi as well, who do fantastic dental work in Malawi. So we'll be interested to hear of the progress of that. Particular thanks to Charles, to Sithembile, and to Brave for the really enlightening presentations today. Charles gave us some takeaways from the National Energy Conference, the NEC, and I was struck by the range of people that seemed to be assembled in the room. I've been to some conferences before that have been labelled as donor conferences, and the one group that's not been there have been donors. And so fantastic that there has been that collection of people involved in policy, investors, banks, and practitioners, academics, and policy experts coming together and hearing from some of the potential investors about what, as Sithembile put it, makes it bankable, what's going to make it investable, and some clear take-homes on that. Then turning to Sithembile, we heard of the work on the last mile solutions and off-grid, and of the clear gap between men and women in the energy sector being very wide, but there also being a gap in information about the gap, of the gender gap, and a need for more data, of there being insufficient training of women stemming back to STEM subjects in secondary school, and a lack of support for women-led projects because currently most are in startup stage in Malawi. But there were solutions, data, mentorship, finance, leadership training, and we heard of REIAMA's work in supporting and training in financial management 30 women business owners, 80 recent graduates in renewable energy and business models and project development, and work from Mzuzu University sponsoring women and youth, and working closely together with the ministries, which I think is important. REIAMA, Sithembile told us, has identified 30 women out of the, I think, 110 people trained, and 3 businesses seem to be thriving already in solar home systems. Then Brave went on to tell us more about the universal electricity energy access gap, with over 500 million people across sub-Saharan Africa having no electricity prospects currently by 2030 if we don't change our ways radically, and recognizing that many people are still using kerosene and open fires with all of the dangers and the climate crisis issues attendant with that. Then the fantastic Light a Village project that's going on. And I think perhaps more common to those who are experts and specialists in the energy sector, but I think for the rest of us generalists, a really striking presentation and picture of transformation of 8,000 households in the Kasakula traditional area pilot, 12 schools and a health clinic impacted positively by that. And insights, I suppose, as to the ability for girls to be able to have access to studying without the risks of travelling. And also the point about the external lights being able to keep the hyenas away and protect the livestock, with 95% of the customers in the area being smallholder farmers. And we know that they produce about 60–70% of the world's food, often 80% of the world's of a nation's food, extremely important. So there's huge positivity, I think, there with that. It's locally embedded, it's working to be involved in complementing existing systems and models, and as Brave said, it's being strongly adopted and quickly deployed. So we'll be fascinated to hear more about the progress of Light a Village, and tremendous to hear about the Shining Mothers initiative that you mentioned, to ensuring that female entrepreneurs are supported to engage in the process. So thank you very much to the University of Strathclyde. Thank you to all of our hosts, and thank you to you for joining us in the room and online. Thank you.
Oh, you, I can take that.
Sure, that's it.